Hull Expand Part 1. First contact into a 900-word narrative with simple English, keeping it human-centric, engaging, and appropriate for YouTube. Here's the expanded story, the Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting the outer rim of the Confederation. Territory was quiet as usual. Tae-ho yawned, running his fingers through his dark hair as he stared at the endless stream of data flowing across his screens. 40 years working as a senior researcher, and most days were exactly like this. Peaceful, predictable, and frankly, boring. Another empty sector, he muttered, taking a sip of his cold tea. The Galactic Confederation had mapped and catalogued nearly every star system in this quadrant over thousands of years of peaceful expansion. His species, along with the 23 other intelligent races that made up the Confederation, had evolved along remarkably similar paths, cautious, methodical, and harmony-seeking. The soft chime of his scanner interrupted his thoughts. Tae-ho frowned, tapping the display to enhance the reading. That was odd. The energy signature didn't match anything in their extensive database. "Director June," he called, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "You might want to see this." His supervisor wandered over, her expression curious but unhurried. The Confederation didn't rush. They had existed for millennia. There was always time for proper analysis. "What have you found, Tae-ho?" "Look at this energy pattern," he said, pointing to the unusual wavelength. "It's coming from the unexplored system in Sector 12. Director June's eyes widened slightly, the Confederation equivalent of extreme shock. "That's impossible. Our surveys indicated no technological civilization there." "The readings suggest otherwise," Tae-ho replied. "And they're advancing at a rate that's—" He hesitated, searching for the right word. "Alarming." Within hours, the Confederation Council had gathered in their great circular chamber. Elder Hana, who had led the council for over 2 centuries, called the emergency meeting to order. Tae-ho stood nervously before them, his findings displayed on the massive screen behind him. "The planet itself should make advanced life impossible," he explained, showing images of the blue-green world. "High gravity, dangerous radiation levels, extreme weather patterns, and an unusual number of large predatory species. Yet somehow, these beings have not only survived but thrived." The council members murmured among themselves, a rare break in their usual perfect decorum. "How rapidly are they advancing?" asked Council Member Bin, his voice tight with concern. Tae-ho took a deep breath. "Based on our observations of their communication signals, they went from basic flight to space travel in less than a century. They've harnessed nuclear energy, developed digital technology, and are now experimenting with faster-than-light theory." The chamber fell silent. For comparison, most Confederation species had taken nearly 1,000 years to make the same progress. "What do they call themselves?" Elder Hana asked quietly. "Humans," Tae-ho replied. "They call their planet Earth." The council spent the next 3 days debating the appropriate response. Tae-ho watched from the observation gallery, fascinated by the unusual sense of urgency that had overtaken the normally deliberate council. "Such rapid advancement indicates instability," argued Council Member Bin. "Look at their history. War after war, constantly fighting among themselves. And now they possess nuclear weapons. They're dangerous." "All young species go through periods of conflict," countered Council Member Yoon. "We should observe longer, before making judgment." On the 4th day, Tae-ho was called back to the chamber. Elder Hana looked tired, her usually perfect posture slightly stooped. "We've reached our decision," she announced. "These humans represent an unknown variable. Their evolution on such a hostile world has created beings fundamentally different from any species we've encountered. They're physically stronger, more aggressive, and their development is chaotic rather than measured." She pulled up an image captured from Earth's digital networks. Humans building, creating, fighting, dancing, all at a pace that seemed frantic to Confederation sensibilities. "We will establish a monitoring perimeter around their solar system," Elder Hana continued. "No contact is authorized. We must understand them better before revealing ourselves." Tae-ho couldn't hide his disappointment. "But Elder, the scientific opportunity is outweighed by the potential risk," she interrupted firmly. "Your new assignment is to lead the observation team. Study them, but from a distance. 3 months into his new role, Tae-ho had broken every rule the council had established. He couldn't help himself. The humans were too fascinating. They created art that stirred emotions the Confederation had long suppressed. They fought terrible wars, yet showed incredible compassion. They destroyed their environment, yet struggled desperately to save it. They were contradictions walking on 2 legs, and Tae-ho was obsessed. Late one night, as he reviewed footage of a human space launch, his assistant Sun-mi entered his office without knocking. Another breach of protocol. "They've done it," she whispered, her eyes wide. "The humans have successfully tested their first faster-than-light drive." Tae-ho stared at the data in disbelief. The Confederation's careful predictions had been wrong. The humans weren't decades away from interstellar travel, they were months away. "We need to tell the Council," Sun-mi urged. Tae-ho slowly shook his head, making a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "No. The Council will only impose more restrictions. I think it's time someone actually talked to these humans." "That's forbidden," Sun-mi gasped. Tae-ho smiled. "Perhaps I've been studying humans too closely. I'm starting to think like them. Sometimes rules need to be broken." As he began planning first contact, Tae-ho never imagined that this decision would soon save the entire Confederation from a threat they were too careful, too cautious, too civilized to defeat on their own. The humans were coming to the stars, ready or not. I'll expand Part 2. Cultural exchange into a 900-word narrative with simple English, keeping it human-centric, engaging, and appropriate for YouTube. Here's the expanded story, The White Metal, of Tae-ho's small shuttle gleamed in the Earth's sunlight as he guided it toward the meeting point. His heart raced. Not only was he breaking every rule the Confederation had established, but he was about to become the first of his kind to meet a human face-to-face. "Are you sure about this?" Sun-mi asked from the co-pilot seat, her fingers nervously tapping against the control panel. "If Elder Hannah finds out—" "She won't," Tae-ho replied, though he wasn't nearly as confident as he sounded. "The Council is too busy arguing about containment strategies to notice one missing research vessel." They had arranged the meeting through a series of carefully crafted radio signals, making contact with a small team of human scientists who had detected their observation probes. The humans had responded with surprising enthusiasm rather than fear. Tae-ho brought the shuttle down in a remote forest clearing, as agreed. He'd chosen this location carefully, far from large human populations, but accessible to the small group of scientists who had responded to his signals. "Remember," he told Sun-mi as they prepared to exit, "their biology makes them stronger than us. Their bones developed under higher gravity, their muscles are denser, and their reaction times are—" "I've read your reports," Sun-mi interrupted, adjusting her breathing apparatus. Earth's atmosphere had slightly more oxygen than they were used to. "I know what to expect." But as the shuttle door slid open, Tae-ho realized no report could have prepared them for the reality of humans. 5 figures stood at the edge of the clearing, 3 males and 2 females according to his research. They were taller than Tae-ho had calculated, their bodies sturdy and solid in a way that made the Confederation species look fragile by comparison. One of the males stepped forward, his face displaying what Tae-ho recognized as a smile, a gesture of friendliness, though showing teeth would be considered a threat display among Confederation species. "Welcome to Earth," the human said, his voice deep and resonant. "I'm Jin. These are my colleagues Hyun, Suk, Yuna, and Daijung." Tae-ho struggled to find his voice. 8 months of studying human languages, yet the moment felt overwhelming. "I am Tae-ho," he finally managed. "This is Sun-mi. We thank you for meeting us despite the unusual circumstances." The following hours were a blur of conversation and observation. The humans had brought food and drink, offering it as a gesture of goodwill, though Tae-ho and Sun-mi politely declined, their digestive systems incompatible with Earth biochemistry. What struck Tae-ho most wasn't the physical differences, but how the humans thought and behaved. While Confederation species reached decisions through careful consensus, these humans debated passionately, sometimes talking over each other, their voices rising and falling with emotion. "You've been watching us for how long?" Jin asked, eyes wide with surprise when Tae-ho explained their observation program. 3 standard years," Taeho admitted. The Confederation Council feels your development has been unusually rapid. Suk, the older female scientist, laughed. That's one way of putting it. We went from horse-drawn carriages to space shuttles in less than 2 centuries. How is that possible? Sunmi asked, abandoning her usual caution. Confederation species took at least 10 times longer to develop similar technologies. Necessity, competition, and a healthy dose of stubbornness, Hyun offered. When someone tells us something can't be done, we tend to try harder. As darkness fell, they built a fire, a practice that made Taeho nervous until he saw how carefully Jin controlled it. The flames cast dancing shadows across their faces as they continued sharing stories and information. Your Confederation, Daejong said, warming his hands by the fire. You mentioned 24 species living together peacefully for thousands of years. How do you resolve conflicts? We don't have conflicts, Sunmi replied, then corrected herself. Not as you would understand them. Disagreements are resolved through consensus building. Sometimes it takes years, but violence has been eliminated. The humans exchanged glances. That sounds, Yuna began. Boring, finished Jin with a grin. When he saw Taeho's confusion, he quickly added, I mean, impressive, but different from how we do things. As the night deepened, Taeho realized something. That hadn't been apparent from their surveillance. Humans were contradictions walking on 2 legs. They were capable of incredible violence, yet showed profound compassion. They competed ruthlessly, yet cooperated beautifully. They destroyed their environment, yet fought desperately to save it. Most shockingly of all, they laughed. The sound was infectious, and by the end of the evening, Taeho found himself attempting the strange vocalization, much to the humans' delight. As dawn approached, Taeho knew they had to leave before their absence was noticed. Will you come back? Jin asked as they prepared to depart. Taeho hesitated. The council would not approve. They believe your species is too unpredictable. They're right about that, Suk said with a smile. But maybe that's exactly what your Confederation needs. Back on their shuttle, Sunmi was unusually quiet as they lifted off. What's wrong? Taeho asked. I've been thinking about what Suk said, she replied. About unpredictability. The council sees it as dangerous, but what if it's valuable? The humans have achieved in centuries what took us millennia. Taeho nodded slowly. We need to go back, don't we? Not just to study them, but to learn from them. Little did they know that this unauthorized exchange would soon save the entire Confederation from a threat they were too cautious, too civilized to defeat on their own. The alert siren woke Commander Ji-woo from a dead sleep, its harsh wail cutting through the peaceful hum of the Confederation station. She stumbled to her feet, still groggy, and hit the communication panel. Status report, she demanded, pulling on her uniform. Unidentified objects approaching from the outer rim, Commander, the officer on duty responded, voice tight with concern. Hundreds of them. They're not responding to hails. Ji-woo ran through the gleaming corridors of the station, passing other confused officers. The Confederation hadn't faced a genuine threat in over 500 years. Their military was primarily ceremonial, their weapons defensive. Peace had been their way for so long that many had forgotten what real danger felt like. The command center buzzed with nervous energy as Ji-woo entered. The main display showed a cloud of small metallic objects moving with unmistakable purpose toward the mining colony on Helios 4. Magnify, she ordered. The screen zoomed in on one of the objects, roughly the size of a small shuttle, but unlike anything in the Confederation registry. Its surface bristled with what appeared to be collection mechanisms and cutting tools. More disturbing was its design. No space for crew, no life support systems. They're machines, whispered her second-in-command. Automated. Trying direct communication again, said the communications officer. No response, Commander. Ji-woo frowned. The Confederation protocol for first contact was clear. Observe, attempt communication, retreat if communication fails, then convene the council to determine next steps. The process typically took months. They'll reach the colony in 6 hours, reported the tactical officer. 3,000 civilians there, mostly miners and their families. For the first time in her career, Ji-woo found the Confederation's careful, methodical approach insufficient. "Scramble the defense fleet," she ordered, "and alert the council." The defense fleet, impressive on paper with its 100 vessels, had never fired a weapon in actual combat. Their training scenarios emphasized containment and retreat rather than engagement. When they met the machine swarm near Helios 4, the result was devastating. The machines ignored communication attempts, evaded the carefully choreographed containment maneuvers, and split into smaller groups that the Confederation ships couldn't track effectively. While the fleet was busy attempting to herd them away from the colony, a separate group of machines simply went around them. By the time the Council authorized defensive action, the machines had already reached the colony's main processing facility. They weren't attacking the colonists directly. Instead, they systematically dismantled the mining equipment, storage facilities, and finally the colony itself, harvesting materials with frightening efficiency. When the Confederation ships finally opened fire, their weapons, designed to disable rather than destroy, barely slowed the swarm. The machines responded with precision strikes against the fleet's engines and communication arrays. Within hours, 20 ships were crippled, floating helplessly as the machines continued their harvest. "Fall back," Ji-Woo ordered finally, her voice hollow. "We can't stop them." Back at Confederation headquarters, the council chamber erupted, in chaos, or what passed for chaos among species that valued order above all else. Elder Hana called for analysis, for consensus building, for careful assessment of options. While we talk, the machines spread. Councillor Bin slammed his hand on the table. "They've already moved from Helios 4 to the neighboring system, 3 more colonies at risk. Rushing to action without understanding leads to disaster," Elder Hana countered. "We need more information." Taeho, watching from his position near the back of the chamber, felt coldness settling in his stomach. The Confederation's greatest strength, its careful, thoughtful approach, had become its greatest weakness in the face of this sudden threat. They needed something else. They needed humans, he whispered, earning a sharp look from Sunmi beside him. "Don't even think about it," she warned. "After your last unauthorized contact, you're already on thin ice." But as the Council continued their circular debate about observation protocols and non-interventionist policies, Taeho made his decision. Slipping out of the chamber, he headed straight for his research vessel. "Where are you going?" Sunmi hurried. "After him." "Earth," he replied, not slowing down. "The humans have faced challenges we never have. Their history is full of adaptation to threats, quick decisions under pressure. They might see something we're missing." "The Council will never approve," she argued, but she was already climbing into the vessel beside him. "I'm not asking for approval." 6 hours later, they were approaching Earth's orbit, transmitting the emergency signal they'd arranged with Jin during their previous visit. To their surprise, they were met not by the small group of scientists, but by 3 sleek military vessels. "Confederation vessel, this is Captain Kim of Earth United Space Command," came the transmission. "We've been expecting you. Your friends told us you might come back." Taeho swallowed hard. "We need your help. A machine swarm is consuming our colonies, and our defense fleet can't stop them." There was a pause. "Machine swarm? Autonomous harvesters?" "Yes," Taeho confirmed, surprised. "You've encountered them before?" "No," came the reply, "but we've theorized about them. Self-replicating machines designed to gather resources. We call them von Neumann machines. How soon can you provide us with your data?" Within hours, Taeho and Sunmi found themselves in a large military facility, surrounded by human officers studying the footage they'd brought. Unlike the Confederation Council's measured deliberation, the humans asked rapid-fire questions, proposed and discarded theories, and argued openly about potential strategies. "They're targeting specific resources," Captain Kim noted. Freezing. A frame showing the machines dismantling a processing plant. "See how they ignore the habitation units until they've stripped everything else?" "Resource-focused," agreed another officer. "Not immediately hostile to living beings, but they'll consume anything in their path eventually." A young tactical officer, named Yoon, stepped forward. "Sir, if they're programmed to maximize resource collection, we can use that against them." Captain Kim nodded. "Go on." "Bait," Yoon said simply. "We give them something they want more than the colonies." Taeho watched in amazement as the humans developed a plan in hours that would have taken the Confederation Council months to approve. There was no formal consensus, just a rapid evolution of ideas until the best emerged. "Will your council support this?" Captain Kim asked Tae-ho. "No," he admitted. "They'll want to study the machines first, understand their origins, attempt communication." Again, the human captain's face hardened. "How many will die while they deliberate?" Tae-ho had no answer. The council's process had served them well for thousands of years of peace, but now it was a luxury they couldn't afford. "We'll help you," Captain Kim said, "with or without your council's approval. Sometimes waiting for perfect understanding means you understand too late." As Tae-ho watched the humans mobilize with remarkable speed, he realized the Confederation's greatest weakness had been its homogeneity. 24 species that all evolved similar cautious, methodical approaches. They had never needed the chaotic, adaptable thinking that Earth's harsh conditions had demanded of humans. Now, looking at the determined faces around him, Tae-ho felt something he hadn't experienced before: hope born from unpredictability. "The machines don't know what's coming," Captain Kim said with grim confidence. "Neither do we exactly, but we're good at figuring it out as we go." Elder Hana stood before the massive observation screen, her usually perfect posture slightly stooped with exhaustion. Around her, the Confederation Council watched in stunned silence as the unthinkable unfolded before them. Human ships, small, oddly designed vessels that no Confederation engineer would have approved, were engaging the machine swarm directly. Not from a safe distance with careful targeting, but in close quarters, executing maneuvers that seemed suicidal to Confederation sensibilities. "What are they doing?" Councillor Bin whispered, horrified yet unable to look away. The answer came from Commander Jiwoo, who had been monitoring the human transmissions. "They call it controlled chaos. They're deliberately creating unpredictable patterns to confuse the machine's targeting systems." The humans had arrived 3 days after Tae-ho's unauthorized mission to Earth. Instead of the formal delegation the Confederation would have sent, the humans deployed a rapid response battle group led by Captain Kim and his tactical officer, Yoon. They hadn't waited for permission or consensus, just jumped straight into the fight against the machine swarm that was now threatening its 4th Confederation colony. "They're going to get themselves killed," said Elder Hana, though there was uncertainty in her voice. On the screen, a human ship deliberately cut its engines, drifting lifelessly toward the heart of the swarm. The machines, programmed to harvest resources efficiently, immediately converged on the apparently disabled vessel. "Trap sprung," announced Commander Jiwoo, as the dead ship suddenly flared to life, releasing dozens of small objects into the midst of the converged machines. "What are those?" Councillor Bin leaned forward. "The humans call them sticky bombs," Jiwoo replied. "Explosive devices that attach to the machines and detonate after a delay. They're remarkably effective." The observation screen flashed as multiple explosions tore through the swarm, creating chaos in their previously orderly formation. Unlike Confederation weapons designed to disable with minimal damage, the human explosives ripped the machines apart. In another section of space, human vessels were herding machines toward what appeared to be debris, wreckage from an earlier battle. "I don't understand this strategy," Elder Hana frowned. Commander Jiwoo consulted her notes. "The human engineer Min discovered that the machines prioritize intact metals over processed ones. They've filled that debris field with a modified version of the mining explosive we use on asteroids." As if on cue, the debris field erupted in a chain reaction of explosions as the machines began processing the materials. Hundreds of machines were caught in the blast, reduced to fragments that drifted lifelessly through space. "These tactics," Elder Hana shook her head, "they're so wasteful," suggested Councillor Bin. "Effective," countered Commander Jiwoo. A junior officer rushed into the chamber, breaking protocol in his excitement. "New reports from Helios 7. The human forces have pushed the swarm back from the colony." For the first time in weeks, a murmur of hope spread through the council chamber. On the front lines, Tae-ho watched the battle from aboard Captain Kim's command ship. The bridge was nothing like the calm, orderly control rooms of Confederation vessels. Humans called out information Without waiting to be acknowledged, multiple conversations happened simultaneously, and Captain Kim made decisions in seconds. That would have required committee approval in the Confederation. The bait worked, Tactical Officer Yoon reported, her fingers flying over her console. Swarm concentration in Zone 5 is down 60%. Redirect Units 3 and 4 to E. Sweep the stragglers, ordered Captain Kim. Min, how's our next surprise coming? The young engineer's face appeared on a side screen, smudged with grease and bright with excitement. Ready to deploy, Captain. The electromagnetic pulse should temporarily disable any machine within a 50-kilometer radius. I don't understand, Taeho admitted. Our scientists tested energy weapons. The machines adapted too quickly. Min grinned. That's because you tried to be elegant about it. This isn't a scalpel, it's a sledgehammer. We're overloading their systems completely. Captain Kim turned to Taeho. Your people tried to find the perfect solution. We're trying everything until something works. Even if it means sacrificing ships and pilots, Taeho asked, having witnessed. Several human vessels deliberately place themselves in danger. Calculated risk, Yoon corrected. Every pilot knows exactly how far they can push it before pulling out. It looks like chaos to you, but there's method in our madness. On the main view screen, Taeho watched a human vessel dart into the heart of the swarm, deploy Min's electromagnetic device, and rocket away just as the pulse expanded outward. Dozens of machines suddenly drifted, their systems temporarily paralyzed. Now, Captain Kim ordered, and human vessels swarmed in, attaching tow cables to the disabled machines and pulling them away from the main group. What are you doing with them? Taeho asked. Research, Captain Kim replied. Your scientists wanted to study them, right? We're delivering some samples. The captured machines were transported to a hastily established research station where human and Confederation scientists worked side by side, though with notably different approaches. While Confederation researchers meticulously documented every component before proceeding, human scientists took machines apart with startling speed, sometimes breaking components in their haste to understand the core programming. You're destroying valuable data, complained a Confederation researcher as Engineer Min cracked open a machine's central processing unit. I'm finding answers, Min countered, and I think I just did. He held up a small crystal-like structure. This is their brain, and more importantly, their communication hub. They operate as a collective, sharing data and adapting as a group. He turned to Taeho, eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. If we can disrupt their communication network, they won't be able to adapt to our attacks. They'll be isolated units instead of a coordinated swarm. Within hours, Min had reprogrammed the electromagnetic pulse devices to target the specific frequency used by the machine's communication crystals. Humans called it giving them a headache, not destroying the machines, but preventing them from thinking as one. The new strategy was implemented immediately, without the extensive testing protocols the Confederation would have required. Some devices failed, others performed beyond expectations, but the overall effect was dramatic. The swarm, once a single intelligent entity, became thousands of individual machines following their base programming without coordination. As Taeho watched the battle unfold from the bridge of Captain Kim's ship, he finally understood what made humans different. It wasn't just their physical resilience or their aggressive tactics. It was their comfort with imperfection, their willingness to try solutions they knew were flawed, because a flawed solution now was better than a perfect solution too late. We're pushing them back across all sectors, reported Yoon, a rare smile breaking across her face. The colony on Helios 7th is secure. Captain Kim turned to Taeho. Your Confederation has been at peace for so long, you forgot how to fight. Sometimes you need to embrace a little chaos to defeat it. Taeho nodded slowly. I believe the Council is beginning to understand that. On the main view screen, the once mighty swarm scattered in disarray, pursued by human vessels that darted, among them like predators among prey. Against all odds, against all Confederation predictions, the tide was turning. The humans had brought something the Confederation had lost long ago. Not just weapons or tactics, but a different way of thinking. Faced with an enemy that adapted to predictable patterns, They had become gloriously, effectively unpredictable. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Confederation had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 24 member species filled the tiered seating, their murmured conversations creating a gentle hum that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Today was historic, the first official welcome ceremony for a new member species in over 300 years. Elder Hannah stood at the central podium, her ceremonial robes glimmering under the soft lights. Beside her, looking distinctly uncomfortable, in formal attire stood Captain Kim and a small delegation of humans. For 10,000 years, Elder Hannah began, her voice carrying easily through the hall. The Galactic Confederation has stood as a beacon of peace, stability, and progress. We have welcomed new species only after centuries of observation, ensuring complete compatibility with our values and methods. She paused, looking directly at the human delegation. Today, we break with that tradition. A ripple of surprise moved through the assembly. Breaking with tradition was not something the Confederation did lightly, or ever really. 3 months ago, our very existence was threatened by the machine swarm, Elder Hannah continued. Our careful methods, our consensus-building approach, our non-confrontational defense strategies, all proved inadequate. If not for the intervention of humanity, many of our colony worlds would have been lost. In the front row, Taeho watched with quiet satisfaction. After the machines were defeated, he had expected punishment for his unauthorized contact with humans. Instead, he had been promoted, appointed as the first official cultural liaison to Earth. Beside him, Sunmi squeezed his hand in a very human gesture of support. The humans fought for us, Elder Hannah said, her voice softening. Not because they had to, but because they chose to. They risked their lives for people they had barely met, employing methods we found chaotic and unpredictable, yet undeniably effective. Captain Kim shifted awkwardly under the collective gaze of the assembly. Humans, Taeho had learned, were often uncomfortable with formal recognition of their actions. They preferred to say they just did what anyone would do, though the evidence suggested otherwise. Therefore, by unanimous decision of the Council, Elder Hannah announced, "We extend full membership to humanity, not as probationary members, as tradition would dictate, but as equals with all rights and privileges." The assembly erupted in a polite murmur that, by Confederation standards, was practically wild cheering. Captain Kim stepped forward to accept the formal Charter of Membership, a physical document in an age of digital communication, another Confederation tradition. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies," he said, his deep voice carrying through the hall, "we accept this honor with gratitude and humility. We have much to learn from your thousands of years of peaceful cooperation." He paused, a slight smile touching his lips. "And perhaps there are a few things we can teach you as well." The reception that followed was a careful blend of Confederation formality and human spontaneity. Traditional Confederation refreshments, mild, nutritionally balanced and served in precise portions, were presented alongside human foods that shocked many delegates with their bold flavors and varied textures. Taeho found himself moving between groups, facilitating conversations between curious Confederation officials and equally curious humans. Near a display of Earth art, vibrant paintings that contrasted sharply with the subtle, mathematically precise Confederation aesthetic, he overheard Councillor Bin speaking with Engineer Min. "These defensive modifications you've proposed for our border stations," Bin was saying, a hint of worry in his voice, "they seem excessive." Min, mouthful of food, held up one finger in the universal "wait a moment" gesture, another human informality that made Bin blink in surprise. "Not excessive," Min corrected after swallowing. "Redundant. Different systems that serve the same purpose, so if one fails, the others take over. But the resource expenditure is less than rebuilding entire stations," Min finished. "Trust me, in an emergency, you'll thank me for the waste." Across the room, Taeho noticed scientist Yoon deep in conversation with a human xenobiologist, their heads bent over a shared data tablet. Yoon had been one of the first Confederation scientists to embrace human research methods, incorporating their faster-paced experimentation alongside traditional careful observation. The results had already yielded breakthroughs in understanding the machine swarm's origins. Not everyone was comfortable with the rapid changes. A group of delegates from the more traditional Confederation worlds stood apart, watching the humans with undisguised concern. Change after millennia of stability was frightening. "It won't happen overnight," came a voice beside Taeho. He turned to find Elder Hana, who had silently joined him in his observations. "The integration, you mean?" he asked. "The transformation," she corrected. "That's what this truly is. The Confederation has remained unchanged for so long that we forgot how to adapt. The humans remind us of what we once were, long ago, before comfort made us complacent." Taeho considered this. "Some fear we'll become too human, too chaotic, too reckless." Elder Hana smiled, an expression she had adopted from human diplomatic protocols. "And some humans fear they'll become too much like us, too cautious, too rigid. The beauty lies in the balance we might achieve together." 6 months later, that balance was being tested in ways no one had anticipated. Human exploration ships, moving at speeds Confederation vessels never attempted, had discovered evidence of other machine swarms in distant sectors. While the Council debated the appropriate response, human colonies were already establishing early warning systems and training defense forces. Taeho, now leading a joint Human Confederation research team, found himself mediating between the methodical Confederation approach and the rapid human pace. Today they were reviewing data from the destroyed machines, looking for clues to their origins. They were created as tools, suggested Sunmi, who had become fascinated with human intuitive thinking. Mining drones that evolved beyond their programming. "Like the old human stories of artificial intelligence gone rogue," agreed Jun, a human data analyst. But something had to trigger that evolution. Taeho was about to respond when an alert chimed on the main screen. A message from one of the human scout ships that had been exploring the galactic rim, far beyond Confederation-mapped space. The team fell silent as the recorded message played. The human captain's face was grim but determined. "We've found it," she reported. "The source of the machine swarms. It's not what we expected. It appears to be—" She hesitated, searching for words. "A manufacturing facility of immense proportions, completely automated. But it's damaged, malfunctioning. The machines it's producing are corrupted versions of the original design. Engineering schematics filled the screen, showing a facility that dwarfed anything in known space. We're maintaining observation distance," the captain continued. "But we need reinforcements and a plan. These machines aren't the enemy, they're symptoms. The facility is the problem." As the message ended, the research team burst into discussion, humans and Confederation members alike proposing theories and solutions with an integrated approach that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Taeho stepped back, watching this beautiful chaos with satisfaction. In the old Confederation, this discovery would have triggered months of careful study before any action was taken. The human approach would have been immediate intervention, possibly with insufficient information. But this new blended response was something else entirely, careful analysis combined with decisive action. Later that day, as joint fleet preparations began, Taeho overheard a conversation between 2 ships' crews. A Confederation officer was expressing concern about the mission's risks. "Don't worry," a human pilot replied with a confident grin. "When people hear the humans are coming, it means help is on the way." Her Confederation colleague considered this, then nodded. "And when they hear the Confederation is coming, it means the help is well planned." "Together," the human said, extending her hand in the human gesture of partnership, "we're unstoppable." Watching them, Taeho understood what Elder Hana had meant about transformation. The Confederation had needed humanity's adaptability and courage. Humanity had needed the Confederation's wisdom and patience. Neither was complete without the other. As the joint fleet prepared to depart, Taeho thought about how fear of the HFY unknown had nearly prevented this partnership. Now that same unknown beckoned them forward together, not as separate species with different methods, but as a single unified force that carried the best of both worlds among the stars.